Welcome back to Sports Hop NFL Playoffs 2021 Wildcard Weekend Preview. It's all the way official. Rashad, let's hop into the Seahawks versus the Rams.
Most definitely.
That's the 1 o'clock game up in Seattle. These teams are very familiar with each other.
Right.
Division rivals, they can't stand one another,
Exactly.
right? Kind of like that ex-girl that keeps calling you. You can't stand it. You trying to just change your number. Stop calling.
Yeah. You block her from social media.
Right. But she's still popping up. So nonetheless, Seattle has had a good year, but they've been kind of up and down. They've been a Jekyll and Hyde team. I can't believe that Russell Wilson in his career has been sacked over 347 times and still ticking.
In an 8-year span.
In an 8-year span.
Crazy.
But he all-time is 98-45-1 as a starter, which is very impressive. He's got a lot of playoff experience.
Most definitely.
I can't count out Pete Carroll in Seattle up in that stadium and the way they play.
Without fans.
Absolutely, even without the fans. Their defense has actually stepped up their game the last month of the season.
Right.
They were really suspect in the beginning of the year, but they got Jamal Adams, who is questionable to play. I've been told through my sources that he is going to play. They've got Fitzpatrick from Cincinnati. That was a big pickup.
Yes.
I do like what the defensive front is doing. The Rams' running game hasn't really been making a lot of noise with Cam Akers and Brown back in that backfield. Jared Goff has a broken thumb.
Yes.
Wolford may come in. He looked decent against the Cardinals considering he hadn't played.
He did.
He came out of Wake Forest undrafted in 2018. I actually think the Rams have a better chance to win the game with Wolford than they do Goff. I know everybody watching is like, what the heck is he saying, right? But he can move around. His style of play actually complements the Rams' offense and Sean McVay's system more than it does with Goff. I just don't think Goff and McVay are a perfect marriage. I just think it's kind of a rocky kind of relationship, even though it's not being reported like that. Goff doesn't have the talent and the mobility to kind of complement Sean McVay's system. This is just my opinion. What do you think?
And I mean, I agree, but I disagree. Because the reason why I disagree, they got to the Super Bowl with the same system. They got to the Super Bowl with Goff and his inability to be mobile. So I kind of disagree in that sense. Now, granted, these last few games he's played, he's looked sporadic because he's under a lot of pressure. And when you can pressure Goff, he folds. That's unfortunate. So for me, the key is getting Akers back healthy, and he's finally going to be back healthy. That was the key that they missed in the Seattle game 2 weeks ago. They missed Akers. They didn't have Akers in that lineup, and yeah, he's a rookie, but he's their bell cow. So him coming back, I think, gives them that physical presence that they have in that system, and hopefully, can possibly win this game.
Speaking of coming back, Chris Carson is still questionable to play, the running back for Seattle. I think he's a key component for that offense. So if Carson does come back and he can open up some holes and have a decent run game going, it sets up play action for Russell Wilson.
Right. Because
Russell Wilson will beat you down the field. But one of the biggest matchups that's intriguing to me is Jalen Ramsey against Metcalf. Because he shut him down that first game.
He shut him down the second game.
The second game he didn't make it. At least he had a couple catches.
But still, I think the last 2 games they played, he's only had like a total of 80 yards.
Right. Look, quite frankly, honestly, the way that the Rams will win the football game is with their defense.
Right.
Aaron Donald up front, that defensive front, he's a monster.
Right.
He was in my top 5 in MVP voting.
Right.
I still believe that the Rams have a shot to win the football game, but they can't go into the red zone and settle for field goals.
For sure.
You're not going to beat the Seahawks kicking field goals. It's just not going to happen. I'm sorry.
That's
when the key is when they get into the red zone, they've got to put the ball in the end zone.
Right.
They can't count on 3 points.
And Akers coming back will help that.
Well, that's the question that remains unanswered. We will see what happens, but when it comes to late game, in-game adjustments, Sean McVay's one of the best, even though he didn't prove it in that Super Bowl 2 years ago against the Patriots. I do think McVay will make some in-game adjustments. Pete Carroll is a player's coach. They all love him up in Seattle. I've interviewed him several times. He's a really nice guy. players coach all day long, but at the end of the day, the line is 3.5. The over/under is 42.5. That's kind of a tricky line with the hook, right? You got the 3.5 home team. I kind of like the Rams in this game to cover, not to win.
Right.
I think the Rams will cover that 3.5. I think they lose by a field goal. In terms of the over/under at 42.5, I think this game is going to go under because both teams have outstanding defenses. I give the advantage on the defensive side of the ball to the Rams because they just have more personnel, particularly in the secondary. They're a lot more talented.
And I agree. And all season long, the biggest issue with the Seahawks was the defense, right?
Right.
And I still think it's still suspect, even though they've
gotten better.
They've gotten better over the last month and a half or so. But in total defense, they still rank 23rd in the league. And I'm sorry, you cannot win a championship with that defense. And before, in the beginning of the season, Russ was cooking, right? It was like Russ cook, let Russ cook, let's Russ cook. The last month or so, that offense has been up and down, which is nuts. Because you have Russell Wilson, you have DK Metcalf, but like you said, Carson, he's been banged up. The running game has been inconsistent. So they're relying on Russell Wilson so much right now to just make a play and literally get them wins, just him alone. So I truthfully feel that if they can get the running game going with Russ, protect him a little bit better, the defense can continue to play well like they've been doing the last month or so, they can win this game.
Yeah, so who do you like to win the game?
Honestly, I'm taking the Seahawks.
Okay.
I can't bet against Russ, man. I just can't. I can't.
Russell Wilson and Aaron Rodgers are so vital to their team.
Right.
They're the two quarterbacks in the league that are predicated on winning. Because if you take Russell Wilson off of Seattle maybe wins 4 or 5 games. Maybe. That's a big maybe. So shout out to C-Town, shout out to LA. It's on and popping. Wildcard weekend 2021. Keep it locked. Sports Hop, don't you go nowhere.